And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, right here on another episode of the Feel Good Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. And guess what? The myth, the legend, the man is here on the airwaves, preparing to send us words of wisdom and moments of meditation. Good morning, sir.
Hi ho, Silver. Tonto. Lone Ranger. The way. Good morning, everyone. Come on, and the way the introductions are great, but people are expecting, the Lone Ranger. Hi ho, Silver. I'm sure most of the people listening to this remember the Lone Ranger. And if you're listening to this show and you're going, who's that? Then you're definitely under the age of 40 or 30. But good morning, everyone.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead. I hope I know the answer.
I was talking to these guys last night, okay? And they were telling me about this show that used to be on called Land of the Lost. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, that's a little before my time, but I remember I probably watched it in reruns. But that's a little before my time. But yes, that was a show. So
you know what? I thought I was a TV Land like expert, okay? And I can't remember that show to save my life.
I think it was before the Patty Duke show. So
I remember Patty Duke.
Right. Somewhere in that black and white. Come on in, everyone. Mark and I have to see each other in a couple of weeks. That's why they call it the Feel Good Show, okay? George by the door, thank you for coming in early, setting up everything. Do you have a nice vacation, you and Alicia? Too short. Yeah, I know. That's what it is. But haven't seen it in a while. And look at Stan over there in his summer outfit, getting ready for jazz night. I want to do a dedication this morning. Come on in, everyone. Plenty of seats up front. Everybody wants to sit in the back, just like in church. Come on up front. I'm going to go right over to Stan, and then I want to do to start off, and then I want to do a very special dedication for a family today, a very good friend of mine. So let's get rolling along, and thank you, Jock, for that wonderful introduction. Stan, the coffee man, there he is, looking good. But before we do you, I know you're anxious, before we get to you, new listener, Christy, from a great gal from Massachusetts who actually helps me at the place that's going to sponsor the table today. We'll get in that in a minute. So, Stan, what's in the coffee pot today? Wow, we have Walt hazelnut. Interesting there, Stan. And what's it? And you have two. Oh, the other one's a decaf. Rock Step Mocha. Stan, these are dance steps. And you know that T-Boz likes dancing. Why do we have Dance Steps Coffee? Our sponsor is none other than the Nonstop Ballroom over there on 141 Main Street in New Hartford. Boys and girls, get your shoes and go there. The people are wonderful dancers, but they're even better people. They're kind, courteous. They accepted me, and Christy is actually one of the instructors there. And, slow, quick. That's the basis for the Foxtrot. But what a great place over there. Robert's the owner. They have a Friday night dance party. You don't have to be a dancer. Don't be intimidated. They got light refreshments there. For $20 you go. They dance till everybody goes home, which could be Saturday morning. All kidding aside. Great place. So they're sponsoring the dessert table. Thank you, the staff at Nonstop Ballroom. And now I want to get into a very special dedication for a very Torrington family. They've been here for a year, but a very dear friend of mine. His name is Jim. We've spoken about him on the show many times. He's a big contributor to when we do the student shows, and he's been a big contributor to my life over the last 9 years. His mother of 96 years passed away, and her name is Selma Boscarino, but before she was Selma Boscarino, she was Selma Solomon. She was Lebanese descent, and she grew up right over where the Walgreens is on the corner of Main Street, and I think that's East Elm, and she was a member of the Lebanese church over here, St. Mary's, for many years. And then they obviously went down over to St. Peter's with the family. But I think Jim was actually an altar boy over here at St. Mary's, if I have that correct. But she started out her life January 17th, 1928. Calvin Coolidge was president. She lived through 16 presidencies. Isn't that amazing? 16 some guys, had a double stay, but 16 presidencies. And she and her husband, Cuddy, his real name, was still wondering why his name was Cuddy, got married on September the 15th, 1951. What's interesting about that is the day they got married is the same day my wife and I got married, and the year they got married is the same year that my parents got married. So Jim and I and his brothers were kind of linked by all of this, right? But she was a wife first, a mother. When she got engaged, her husband said to her, "Do you want a ring or a stove?" She said, "I'll take a stove." So she was a practical woman, a hard worker. She worked at the S&S green stamp store downtown once the kids were up and running. And her greatest contribution, we're going to get to that in a minute, but one of her greatest contributions is her volunteering at Lord's Shrine, a place that next to her family, her and her husband loved dearly. And the funeral is going to be there on Saturday. And a lot of people would say that Selma was religious. But you know me, I get a little tongue-tied with that word. Because sometimes people who practice religion, but they don't know why they're practicing religion. Selma had a deep love and a faith in God. Very deep. And so her religious practices were well-meaning because it came first out of her love for God. And I'm sure all the years I met Jim later in life, growing up the family, whenever there was challenges or things that came up, good times or bad times, she always turned to God for guidance, for help, and comfort. And out of that deep faith, she raised 4 wonderful sons, Dave, Fred, Jim, Ralph, and she has 4 daughter-in-laws, which is Mary, Diane, Peggy, and Amporo. And then she has 4 wonderful grandchildren, which is Mike, Rusty, Heather, and Dominic, and Anthony, and many great-grandchildren. Her legacy, it will be her children, her sons, her grandchildren, and the faith, the love of God that she has instilled in them and taught them, that they will carry on as they touch other people's lives. Jim has been a tremendous help to me. A lot of you know that. And he learned that from the love that his mother showed not only to his father, but to God. They were a very God-centered family. And we're going to miss her, but heaven is going to be happy to get her. And I can only imagine that Angelo was waiting at the gate, and he's probably saying to her, "What took you so long?" And she probably said, "Well, Jim had a wedding with Peggy. I wanted to be around for that. Wanted to make sure Ralph and then Diane were all set, and Mary and Dave and Fred and everybody and the kids, and everyone was all set, so it's time for me to spend eternity with you." So a beautiful love story begins in heaven. And I know the family's going to miss her, but at least they loved her. You know, guys and girls, boys and girls, they say, love your parents while they're here. Don't wait till they pass. And the Boscarinos are a great example of that. So, Selma, enjoy your time with Cuddy. Now, today we're going to talk about diversity, okay? And the format for today is we're going to explore the advantages of diversity, okay? How it can help in companies, how it can help in our home, how it can help in the workplace. And the questions we're going to ask ourselves is, do we embrace diversity? Do we tolerate it? Or do we fake it? Boom. Diversity is a key in building stronger communities. And we look over at Hosea. We're going to start with our scripture verse, as we always do. And we look at Hosea, who's actually a great prophet, and chapter 10, verse 12. And he says, break up for yourselves a new field, for it is time to see God. So break up for yourselves a new field. If you want to embrace diversity, boys and girls, you got to get rid of the old crap. Okay? Says it right there. Break up for yourself a new field. So all the paradigms, all the prejudices, all the things that we have in our heart, forget about our head, the weeds, if you will, if you think of that field. You got to break that up, okay? You can't say, well, I've been doing this for 30 years, and my mother thought this way, my father thought this way. You're a new creation in Christ. Break up that field and build a new field, all right? We look at Simon Sinek, and he's a British inspirational speaker, and he says that the key is diversity of thought. Boom. What we think in our head will block us from being a diverse people. So he says the key is diversity of thought, okay? Companies and communities are made stronger through diversity, and it also stimulates creativity. Wow. So when we have a culture that embraces diversity, not just tolerates it or fakes it, and truly accepts it and sees people as individuals but as a greater sum, then we can stimulate creativity. Then we can stimulate hearts. Then we can make a better world to live in. Acts of the Apostles, chapter 17, verse 26 says, it is in this greater form of unity. Now, this is from 2,000 years ago, folks, okay? In this greater form of unity that humanity's diversity rightly appears. Humanity's diversity rightly appears in this greater form of unity. What are the apostles talking about? In unity is where you see the diversity. You can't be diverse without bringing it all together. So in that unity, as we become one, but still having the characteristics of ourselves, of our culture, of our people, of our thoughts, of our dreams, and all of that, then we truly become one. It doesn't happen the other way around. We look at Galatians chapter 3, verse 28, and it says, there is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free. There is neither male or female. For you are all one in Christ, Paul says. So when they were starting the early church, you talk about diversity. You had Peter over here saying, no, it's got to be this way. You had Paul over here saying, no, it's got to be that way, right? And these two guys, one guy is uneducated. The other guy was cutting heads off Christians, and then they brought him into the group, right? So you have two guys from two totally different spectrums of ancient world. Yet they're arguing each other, but why? For the better good of unity. So they had to deal with diversity too. Look at Jesus. He built his church with 12 apostles. That was the most riffraff bunch of guys you ever wanted to meet. There was one educated guy. The rest were tradesmen, fishermen, and others were political zealots. And when you talk about diversity, guess who Jesus didn't ask to build his church? Rabbis. Isn't that interesting? The people who thought they had the fruit on the tree, he said, nah, I don't want you guys. I'm going to build my church. And when I say the church, I'm not talking about the Catholic Church, about the whole church, okay? He said, I'm going to build this church. I'm going to use people from all different walks of life. I'm going to use pagans. I'm going to use Jews. I'm going to use Samaritans. Look what he did. This show exists because of diversity. I have been shaped. I started the show 3 years ago. There's three people that really helped shape this show, okay? There's two men and a woman. The woman is a moderate. Now, I'm a conservative, right? I can say that on this radio station because it's commercial free. And we're going to get to the sponsors in a second. So I'm a conservative. This woman who's been a friend of mine for years is a moderate. We disagree politically most of the time. There's another gentleman who's a priest. He's kind of in the middle. And there's another friend of mine who's like a liberal moderate. But it's their input into this show is why I say all are welcome. If you're an atheist, be a great atheist. If you're agnostic, be a great agnostic. If you're a Muslim, Jew, Catholic, gay, straight, transgender, that door where George is standing is open to everyone. Because it's in our diversity and what we bring in our gifts and talents that make this country great and make the community great. Jock, why don't we hit the sponsors because it's 11:30 on the nose.
Thank you so much, T-Boz. We appreciate that. And we want to thank you all for tuning in to today's show. And we want to encourage you to participate in our local and live broadcast each and every Thursday. If you're a business, artist, venue, or person of interest and you want to blast off and let everyone know what you're doing, what you're up to, and what you're all about, then indeed, Thursdays is your day to make it happen. We also want to thank our sponsors for allowing us to bring you the quality community radio programming that you're witnessing at this time. So with that being said, we'll return the floor back over to T-Boz for more words of wisdom and moments of meditation.
Thank you, W. We look at Matashona Filaweo, and she says, race and religion does not separate people. Ignorance does. Ooh. And in the word ignorance is ignore. Actually, it almost looks like Igor and ignore. But ignorance separates us, not religion and race. It's our own ignorance. That's why we go right back to Hosea, where he says, break up a new field. It's our ignorance, our unwillingness to at least listen to other people and understand other people is what causes separation in this country. Ignorance separates people. It's not so much that someone is a Muslim. It's not so much that someone is a Jew or a Catholic or a Protestant. It's our ignorance to want to embrace them and understand them. We look at, the sun just came in when we didn't want it. We look at Romans chapter 14, verse 10, and it says, why do you pass judgment on your brother or yourself? Why do you despise your brother? Okay? We will all stand before the judgment seat of God at the end. Why do we pass judgment? Why do we say, I can't have that person in my life because of blah, blah, blah? Why do companies segregate things and communities segregate people and ideas and opinions? Why? It says it right there in Hebrews. Why do we do it? It doesn't matter, because we're all, A-L-L, going to stand before the judgment seat of God. It doesn't matter what you did. When Selma gets to heaven, God's not going to look at how many masses she went to, not going to look at how many candles she lit. He's going to see her heart and see that she gave of herself to her husband first, her kids, her grandchildren, her community. That's what she is going to be judged on. And she's going to pass the test. Too much of us, too many times, we don't have inclusion because we're too busy judging people. Matthew chapter 9, verse 9 to 13 says, and he eats with sinners and tax collectors. So you talk about diversity. They didn't even have names. The Pharisees didn't even have names for the people he was sitting with because they had no dignity to them. They weren't important because they didn't think it looked like them. And who did God sit with? He sat with all the people that they didn't want to sit with. Isn't that amazing? If God came right here today, you know where he would be? He wouldn't be at the churches in town. He'd be maybe somewhere in town where someone's sticking a needle in their arm. He'd be somewhere in town where maybe someone has a different political opinion. He'd be somewhere in town where someone comes from another country and they're trying to learn English as best they could. How many times do we say, we pick up the phone, oh, I can't stand this, these people don't speak English? My grandmother never spoke English. She died saying hi and bye. So, who am I to judge someone on the other end of the phone if I can't fully understand them? Patience is also the key to diversity. Patience, patience, patience. Adam Grant says this, it's hard to keep an open mind if you do not have an open heart. So it starts in the heart. We talked many weeks ago about Isaiah. The human heart is deceitful above all things and wicked. It's true. We also mentioned on that show that Hitler didn't kill 6 million Jews because he thought it was a good idea. He felt it was a good idea. So what do we hold in our hearts, right? What do we hold in our hearts? What prejudices have we grown up with? What political things do we have in our head that we possibly can't even listen to another person? And so we do not have a diversified culture, which then makes us weaker. Understanding experiences and viewpoints that do not mimic our own builds the most valuable skills that we can learn, and that is empathy. What builds community, what builds companies, what builds households, what builds the world is empathy. We lack that in the culture because we're so busy folding our arms and saying, you don't look like me. Most of my best friends are not part of the same political party that I support. Boom. Some of my best friends don't even go to church. Boom. Some of my best friends don't even believe in God. Boom. But I have a rich quilt around me. A rainbow isn't all red, boys and girls. It's different colors. When you go to the ag fairs, right, you see the big quilts hanging on the wall. Which are the ones that the people are oogling and ogling over? The ones that are all multicolored, not the ones that are just beige or brown or whatever. I built a diverse group of people. The reason why I have a lot of friends, and this show isn't about me, is because I've embraced people's differences. I don't want one opinion. I don't want to live in a world of one opinion, one way of thinking. I don't want that. What I want is openness of mind. I want to hear people's ideas. I want to hear how they think. That's why when we did the Father's Day show, I wanted to know what your father was like. I wanted to know his heart, not what he did for a living. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. We look over here at Karen Draper, and she says, diversity does not look like anyone. It looks like everyone. Bing, bang, boom. Everyone can contribute, irregardless of what their color is, their race, their religion, their political background, their social economical background. Everyone contributes. Everyone contributes. There's a great thing I'm going to come up to that Desmond Tutu said, which is actually amazing. Okay, Verna Myers says this: diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. Boom. This is what I say, are we faking diversity? Are you asking people to dance? It's easy to invite them to the party, right? Like I said about the ballroom. Yeah, it says, come on in, $20. But you know what's nice over there? They ask you to dance, even if you can't see, like me. Their hands are open, their hearts are open, their minds are open. And they say, yeah, come on, Tommy, let's dance. Yeah, come on, Jennifer, let's dance. Yeah, come on, Margaret, let's dance. Yeah, come on, Barbara, let's dance. And that's how it should be in our diverse world. If we're just inviting people to the party, boys and girls, we're faking it. We're ignorant. We don't want to be ignorant, because when we're ignorant, we ignore people. We're not about ignoring people. I believe the people listen to the show don't ignore people. We look at Nellie Borrero, and she says, the message is that we embrace diversity, not just tolerate it. And I said that earlier. Embrace the diversity. Embrace the fact that your neighbor is from Guatemala. Embrace the fact that your daughter married someone from Indonesia. Embrace the culture. When you have your Christmas thing, I mean, we have the Italian Christmas Eve, right? But Emily is dating a Jewish boy named Storm. That's his real name. And we even have Jewish food there, too. So we're embracing the diversity. We're not saying, nope, that's it. The last name ends in a vowel. All you're going to eat is fish and pasta. We embrace it. He even puts up Hanukkah decorations along with the Christmas decorations. The reason why we have problems at Christmas time because people don't want this, they don't want that. Put it all up. That's what I say. Put it all up. You know, when you see an army going over there to defend this great country, they're all different races, colors, and creeds. They just don't send one group of people, one political party. Well, if they can all die for us, then we can embrace the diversity. What are some characteristics of diversity? Okay, one of them is diversity itself. That's understanding differences of people. Another one is equity, understanding that some people have come to a certain part in life where they are. Some have had hardships, some haven't. Equity is making sure that people have ample opportunity to resources and materials that they need to grow. All right, inclusion, we just talked about that, bringing people in, inclusion, including people. It's not just, like I said about the dance, just don't invite your African-American neighbor over for a party, include him in the conversation. Love him, right? What did we learn a couple of weeks ago? Love others as I have loved you. I don't care if you're an atheist, a Jew, a Muslim. You could look at that as Huckleberry Finn for all I care, but it makes sense Love one another as I have loved you. So inclusion, including people, even if they're conservative, even if they're liberal, even if they're moderate, even if they're Green Party, include them. Ask them what they think. See how they feel. Ask them why they got to where they are. My late wife used to say to me, and this other woman used to say, boy, Tommy, you can find out in 5 minutes about someone what most people wouldn't. You know why? Because I was interested in people. I want to know how they got here. I want to know where they came from. I want to know their beliefs. I want to know their political views. I want to know it. Why? Because I want to change them? No, because I want to change me. I want to change me. Where I grew up in Long Island was all Western European. We didn't see people of color. But now in my new life, using Uber again, there's a lot of people from a lot of different countries. It's amazing what you'll find out when you ask people about themselves. It's amazing how it changes you. And the last part of diversity, belonging. Do we really feel in our companies that we have, some of you own your own companies, do we really feel a sense of belonging? When Selma volunteered at Lord's Shrine, it wasn't for all Lebanese people that benefited from that, or her husband's Italian descent people that benefited from their volunteerism. All people benefit from their volunteerism. And when they have that big motorcycle blessing every year, you think Selma really cared if some of the people sitting on the motorcycles are atheists? No, but because her and her husband volunteered for that beautiful Lord's Shrine, they're able to have that beautiful blessing for the motorcycles every year. Because the blessing is for everyone. You'd be surprised. I told you about the time years ago I was sitting with the Eucharist in Bridgeport. It's the thing you do in the Catholic Church. You sit with the Eucharist. And 2 prostitutes came in at 2 a.m. in the back of the church, and they sat down. Boom. They stayed for about an hour. They got up and they left. Maybe they went back to work. But for an hour, they wanted to be with God. Probably weren't there every Sunday. Didn't matter. Diversity, belonging, inclusion. We have to learn to look and feel with the heart and the eyes of God. God looks past the behavior of people and he sees the individual. God loves us through the pain. His pain of hanging on the cross. We have to love through the pain. We have to see people as individuals, not just like the Pharisee said, he sits with tax collectors and zealots. Desmond Tutu says this. I think this could have been the takeaway. Isn't it amazing how we are all made in God's image, yet we have so much diversity among us? Boom. Just like the pianos, keys on a piano, right? They're all black or white, whatever. They look the same, but they all play different notes. And it isn't amazing. When you play one note, it's one sound. But when you put 4 or 5 fingers and you play a chord, you have a beautiful sound. Why? Because you have a C, an E, a G, an A, a B, all of it. The diversity of the strings in the piano creates the music. We can create music instead of looking at life at black and white. Press down all the keys on the piano, boys and girls. You'd be surprised what you'll hear. We look at Chris Jammy, and he's the host on YouTube of, the On Tap. The show is called On Tap. And he says, it's not at all hard to understand a person. It's only hard to listen without bias. Bing, bang, bang. When we listen to people, do we listen to really hear them, as I said, with our hearts as God listens? Or are we listening because we can't wait to jump in there and tell them how wrong they are or how we feel? You know, a friend of mine, Herb Hansen, said to me years ago, he says, Boz, ask people a question and then shut up. So when we sit and listen to people, is our bias blocking? It goes right back to what I said before about ignorance is the difference, not race and religion, but it's ignorance. And we go right back to Hosea, and it says, break up for a new field. Get the biases out of our heads. Get the prejudices out of our heads. Get the preconceived notions out of our heads. And we might hear something wonderful from someone we don't know. It may impact our life. I'm not saying that you have to change your principles, but be open to other people's principles. Don't tolerate. You know, when you play golf, there isn't just a 9-iron in the bag. There's all different Some are made of wood, some are made of metal. They're all different weights. The way you win the game is using all the golf clubs in the bag. You just can't win. You can't win the Masters with a 9-iron. So why don't we do that in our lives? Why don't we use all the clubs in the bag? Why don't we look at all the colors in the quilt? Why don't we look at all the colors in the rainbow? We got autumn coming up in a few weeks. I hate some of you don't want to know that. My brother already started growing fall mug. But the Litchfield Hills are beautiful. Why? Because they're multicolored. Things you got to think about, boys and girls, if we want to grow and create a better community. Let's get to the takeaway because we have a really cool song, and there's 2 takeaways. The first one, well, I'm going to do the second one first. The first one is from Stephen Covey, and he is an activist, and some of you know, and done a bunch of things. But he says our strength lies in our differences, not our similarities. This country was built on differences. Place where people come and start a new life. That's why my grandparents came here, okay? And probably a lot of you listening. They came here. They couldn't speak English. They didn't know that. They brought their culture. Other people brought their culture, and they built this culture. Someone said to me years ago, the United States shouldn't be a melting pot. It should be a stew. When you look at a stew, you still see the carrots. You still see the potatoes. It has one flavor, but the identity of the ingredients is still there. So Stephen Covey says, our strength is in our differences, not our similarities. And I actually met someone over the last 6 weeks, and we have differences on different things. That's our strength. That's what makes this relationship that I've started interesting. That's what makes it exciting. Because like I said to this woman, if I wanted someone like me, I'd be dating my brother because I'm a twin. So a little bit of humor there. But it's nice when people are different. And this takeaway, which I think sums up the whole show, Maria Cava says this: why be a star when we can be a constellation? Boom. Why be a star? Sometimes it's nice to let the light shine on somebody else. Why be a star? You don't have to be a superstar. This radio station has wonderful DJs and all different kind of music and stuff, right? Why they let me in, I don't know, but all kidding aside. But I feel like I'm part of a constellation at WAPJ. I mean, Jock is the big name on the marquee, all kidding aside, but they're all stars in their own right. But we all come together to do this radio station for all of you, and we create the constellation of WAPJ. That's why you guys like this radio station. There's something here for everyone, not just one, right? Diversity isn't about one. It's about everyone. So I encourage all of you, open your hearts, open your mind, give people a chance, learn from other people, and you can become that beautiful quilt that you see at Goshen Fairgrounds. So I want to thank all of you for joining me today. I know we had to move right along because I wanted to get to the little part about Jim's mother. We have a real rockin' song here, so move the coffee table. And I just want to thank Stan, very clever with the coffee, and the sponsor. Look at him laughing over there. See him at Sasso's tonight. Great jazz down there. Get your butts down there. And George by the door, you did a great job. You're a little bogey-eyed from the vacation, but that's okay. Thanks for coming in early and helping us. Remember, everyone, be yourself because everyone else is taken. Jock, rip that song. It's a good one.